going on, everyone? Alex Miller from the Eagle, joined by Travis Brown and Robert Cessna. We're inside Kyle Field's press box, coming to you live, breaking down Texas A&M's loss, 26-22 to Mississippi State tonight. You got last week A&M, they lose to Arkansas, and you got to think A&M's playoff chances are dashed. And after a loss like this, Cease, I mean, A&M's got to be thinking they need to just get a win. Playoff hopes are far gone.
I think someone asked Jimbo about that when you guys were down in the post game, and he said, each game you got to win and adjust. Obviously, their goals are going to be a lot lower. How many can they win? Let's be honest. That's what they have to look at now. Yeah,
Travis, what were some of your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I think that I was willing to hold back and say that maybe the moment just got a little bit into Zach Calzada's head in that Arkansas game in AT&T Stadium. Let's get another game removed against the Mississippi State team that hasn't been doing a whole lot and see where it was. And he just frankly still wasn't very good, especially with an offensive line that actually I think played better than they did against Arkansas and even against New Mexico. Layden Robinson stepping in had a big impact on that. And I was a little curious. I really liked what Owen Buchanan of Texags asked Jimbo in. It just seemed like that defense, when they dropped into zone coverage, was really, really soft on those wide receivers. And I get dropping back and letting them have the intermediate and check down passes, but they were so soft on those receivers that they had time to catch it, turn, decide where they were going to go, and then make that move and go. And they never really made that adjustment. And so hats off to Will Rogers, their quarterback, for having a very, very good game. But it just seemed like that defensive strategy wasn't necessarily optimum for what they were trying to do. See, so I'm curious to see what you thought about that.
And when they did blitz, because a lot of times they went to man on their second touchdown, they went man. He beat Jones real bad, and it just seemed whatever A&M decided, what Elko decided, Leach had an answer. Because when they come with that fourth guy, or even tried to come with five a couple times, they made bigger plays. And once again Elko's known for his pressure, so he's going to bring pressure. But I felt, and I put in my grades, whatever he dialed up, Mike Leach and Rogers had an answer, and I do give them all the credit because they missed 2 field goals. This game should have been over. Their offense did enough when they went down there to the 18 or 14-yard line. They kick a field goal there. The game's probably over because it's 8 points. But it's a frustrating day for Aggies all around because I get it. You want to throw Calzada under the bus, but if you do, throw the defense under the bus in because they didn't get a turnover. It's such a weird game. You look at third downs, 3 for 10. But, Mississippi State never went 3 and out. Even when they had them backed up, they made plays. Mississippi State played great complementary football, except for their special teams was horrible, and they still won. A&M had good special teams, 53-yard punts, 3 field goals. They still don't win the game. So it's got to be very frustrating. If you're an Aggie fan, whatever, I get it. They're not good enough. That's the bottom line.
How frequently do you see an air raid team that likes to pass it around pretty much dominate time of possession by 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I mean, that was unbelievable in itself.
Yeah, because if you go back and listen to Leach this week, he said, one of the stats I hate is time of possession because that means nothing. He's all about scoring points. But I have to laugh is he says he doesn't have good receivers. Well, A&M made an all-conference player out of Polk today. I think that was his name, yes. Polk or Yoke or whatever. I mean, they couldn't do anything against him. And once again I do blame Elko a little bit because you got to take that guy away. If there's one guy that was beating him, it was that guy. Take him away, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, I think you wrote in your column how another Mike Leach team came in and beat A&M at Kyle Field, and they did exactly what Mike Leach teams have done in the past. And while we're talking about the pass defense, I think we should note that A&M was missing several guys in their secondary. Miles Jones was out again. Brian George didn't play. Keldrick Harper wasn't available. I mean, they were mixing in a lot of young guys. Tyreek Chappelle, I mean, he's seen a lot of time these first 4 games, but, the veteran guys, Miles Jones, a guy who was really solid last year, just really hasn't had it, nagging down with that injury. Yeah, Travis, what?
Tyreek Chappelle, he had quietly a pretty good game. I mean, you look, they had the one kind of fade pass to the end zone on the far corner that he comes in, breaks up, gets the guy, pushes the guy out of bounds, makes an incomplete pass, and then he had the big hit there to knock the ball loose on third down to give them an opportunity to then try to come back and do that game-winning drive, which ultimately ended in a safety. He quietly had a pretty solid game at defensive back, but there's not a lot of positive to take right now because it's just a team that doesn't really know it doesn't really have an identity, and it's trying to grasp straws at what it thought its identity was, and it just isn't there. I'm really curious. It's an interesting mixed message we've been getting from both the players and from Jimbo, because the players keep saying over and over again, we just have to go back and it's about practice. And I know that could very well just easily be a cliche, but is it simply that they aren't executing well enough in practice and that's playing out, or is it simply that they just are outskilled right now?
You know, what's funny is, Travis and Alex, here's the way I feel. I've been doing this for a long time. We all have high school, whatever level you're at. And this is why we cover the games, because I thought for three quarters Mississippi State was clearly the better team. And then when they went down and they didn't get anything out of that drive with the Crayons really getting in it, you know, my adrenaline gets flowing because I said, you know, A&M's going to win this game because the crowd is going to will them to them. You're going to go down to the locker room. There's going to be a lot of good things to build on. Calzada's run. They're going to be pumped up. They're going to win this game. And then Cheney breaks that 49 or whatever it was. And I know I said to myself, A&M's going to win this game. Instead, you know, as a journalist, you know, you'd like to be a guy on the bus or the plane for Mississippi State because that's a huge win. They won this game twice because they had to feel a little bit like, oh, man, we're going to lose this game. We're just cratering here, and watching that guy hit field goals the way I hit a tee shot off. You're thinking like, that doesn't have a chance. But they found a way to win. And if you're Mississippi State, man, you got to feel right now the sky's the limit. And if you're A&M, you got to feel the sky is falling.
We talked last week after the game, where does A&M go now? I mean, it was one thing to talk about it last week after you lose to an Arkansas team that looked pretty decent, but then, you know, you watch the way that they just got dominated by Georgia today, and then you see the performance A&M has tonight against Mississippi State. Alabama's coming into town next week after a very convincing win over Ole Miss. You know, Cease, you kind of touched on it earlier. Where do you see this A&M team going from here?
Well, Jimbo's got to rely on all his coaching and all his coaches to keep, you know, I hate the word circle the wagons because the Indians are already in. You got a lot of arrows. You've been shot up. I mean, everybody thought that might be a top 5 matchup. It's going to be number 1 against unranked. I mean, oh my gosh, how far has A&M fallen? And, you know, you talk about don't read everything, whatever, it's hard to do. Those guys, it's up to them to go win games, whether it's Missouri, South Carolina. They're not going to beat Alabama. Nothing that team has shown me that they can beat Alabama. And it's going to be hard to take a positive out of that. And there's no positive the last 2 weeks. Jimbo's going to earn his money as the rest of the coaches, because I feel for the players because I thought they played hard today. They just didn't play winning football.
Yeah, Alex and I were talking as we walked back up. I put my last take and my 3 takes on the Eagle that who is this team now and where do they go from here? Because you talked up to them after the Arkansas loss, and they said, well, our goals are still achievable. We just have to lock down, and our goals are still achievable. Well, with 2 losses, and especially a loss to this Mississippi State team, whatever they thought their goals were coming into this season, those aren't on the table anymore. So they're going to have to reassess. And Jimbo Fisher, I was the one who asked the question, Jimbo Fisher, for the most part, said that that's possible, but his kind of spin on it was you don't look at your goals until you're done with the season and you look back on them, which is a little bit of coach speak. But like Alex and I were talking, I don't see much more than 6 wins on this team. So now is the goal just get bowl eligible? Because you beat Missouri, you beat South Carolina, you beat Prairie View A&M, but you don't. That's 6 wins right there. But I don't know if there's much more bite of the cherry in any of those games.
Well, because Auburn and LSU, you know, you're rattling them off. You're right. There's no quality win out there, and we all talk about quality, because everybody's laughing like, oh, who is Mississippi State beat? They've had to come back to beat Louisiana Tech, whatever. And you could say, like, they did have one good win, NC State. And now Mississippi State, to their thinking, has 2 good wins. And right now A&M has no good wins. So it's tough. It's tough.
And how much can things change in 5 weeks? Because I remember you and me, all 3 of us were sitting, I think, in this very room saying, look at all the weapons that A&M has on offense. And I don't necessarily think it just falls on losing Haynes King, because that plays a significant part in it. But it's crazy to see the change that this team has gone from that Kent State game to where they are now.
Everybody likes to throw Calzada under the bus, but we saw it tonight a couple times happen. They're 1st and 10, they lose 4 yards on a run or 3, and they're done. And as Jimbo calling plays, that's a lot of pressure, but you can't call a play that loses 3 and 4 yards because they're done for then.
Especially with the way that Jimbo likes to call plays, you're going to see a lot of third downs with that kind of ball possession kind of offense that he likes to run. And so if you get third, but it needs to be 3rd and 4 at the most, not 3rd and 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 like it had been sometimes, because they just don't have the firepower to overcome that.
Well, and that was the issue A&M faced tonight, especially when they got in the red zone. They had the 3rd and 4, they had the 3rd and 6 inside the 15. Calzada got sacked twice for almost a loss of 10 yards. You having to settle for field goals instead of putting up 6. Jimbo said it after the game. You got to maximize those drives, especially in a game like this where it comes down to a possession or 2.
Here's the deal before we go or whatever. The bottom line is they're not a very good team. And I don't know when we're going to be saying after a podcast that they are a very good team, because they're going to go out and put 2 or 3 good efforts together. And I don't know right now if that group can do that.
Yeah, and I will be curious to see, and I know you said there's a lot more going on, and Jimbo said there's a lot more going on than Zach Calzada, but I'll be curious to see the kinds of developments that he can make in a short period of time, because otherwise, unfortunately for the kid, he's going to be a little bit of a punching bag for the next couple of weeks, just in trying to plug holes in the ship until Haynes King can get back in.
He made the great play, and I go, there's a lot of things I felt they were going to get tonight. His 25-yard touchdown was a great play. The blitzer come in, he goes around, he goes up right, he goes up the middle, but then he missed Wiedemeyer wide open on 3rd. Wiedemeyer is wide open. If you look at the replay, he's not under pressure. All he has to do is lay it in, and that was going to be like a 25 to 30-yard. He's not good enough, but we could say that about a lot of players on the team on defense. 17 made a great play on 3rd down to give him a chance, Chappelle, but how many times was he beat? It's
not to mention the face mask on 3rd down that turned 3 points into 7.
Right, exactly. And they keep making those plays. They had 2 penalties again on special teams. They keep making penalties. And you could say, well, Cessna, all penalties are stupid, but they just seem to, when you're losing, they hurt.
Would you call them bird brain penalties?
Oh, I like that.
Well, hey, maybe Jimbo Fisher can recruit the Kyle Field Bird to the Aggie football team so they can claw back into this season.
Oh, they love that guy, or fly back into it.
There you go. All right, I think that's going to do it for us tonight. Thanks for tuning in to another post-game recap. Be sure to check theeagle.com and Sunday's paper for all of our coverage from today's game. For Travis Brown and Robert Cessna, I'm Alex Miller. We'll see you next time.